Okay, the date is October 21st, 2019. The time is 4:17, and that is our time that we're calling this appeal hearing by Evan Lovejoy for the Board of Assessment Review to order.
Okay, I'm Jane Stark. I was voted in as the chairman of the Board of Assessment Review.
My name is Julie Kern.
My name's Dabney Lewis.
And how many are going to be testifying this afternoon?
Adrian and Don.
And Kathy?
Yes.
Those that will be, including you, please raise your right hand and we will swear you in. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter now in the hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the pains or penalties of perjury?
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we held our organizational meeting on, what day was it, Kathy? The
September 30th.
September 30th. And we were sworn in as the board. And this is an informal hearing. You do as you just swore to tell the truth in the matter as you see it and understand it. And I don't believe anyone present is legal representation, is that correct? So you can give either oral or additional written testimony. I think we've got a pretty comprehensive package here of the application itself. And I'd like to start with the assessor, Kathy Gagan, explaining how she arrived at her valuation, and then we'll hear from you as to why you...
Could I interrupt just a moment,
Sure,
please?
certainly.
Okay, so we have the acceptance of the organizational meeting minutes.
Yes.
So,
Did we have to vote on that?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
motion.
Sorry.
Is there anybody giving a motion to accept?
I motion that we
Okay.
accept.
And second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Do we want to go over the rules of procedure?
I think they're pretty straightforward.
Okay. Has everybody read the rules of procedure? Okay. Okay. Kathy?
Any other questions before we start? Okay, Kathy,
Okay.
please.
In Maine, tax assessors are under both a constitutional and statutory obligation to determine the just value of all taxable property, both real estate and personal. Personal property doesn't really play into this, although there are some things in the packet where I have showed just that other businesses have been assessed personal property. And shall be apportioned and assessed equally according to just value. And that's in the Maine Constitution. And the term just value is essentially synonymous with fair market value, except in the case of farm, open space, tree growth, which are based on current use. While assessors are required to assess most properties on the basis of just value, the constitutional requirement is not property be assessed at just value, but rather in accordance with just value. The applicant for an abatement has the burden of proving that the responsibility of showing the board that the assessment of his or her property is not in conformity with state law. Property owner's personal opinion that the property assessment is too high is an insufficient basis for granting an abatement. There is a presumption of correctness on the part of the assessor. The property owner must submit clear and convincing evidence that the property is overvalued by more than 10%. The applicant must prove that the property was substantially overvalued, that it resulted in unjust discrimination, and that the assessment was fraudulent, dishonest, or illegal. This is the taxpayer's responsibility to provide, and without it, the assessment must stand. Assessors are primarily concerned with equity in assessments in accordance with the intent and requirement of the law. Assessors usually take the cost approach. We build each property up, and the tables are derived from the market, actual market sales. This is how we arrive at what we charge for decks, sheds, garages, 1 story, 2 stories. That's taken from market, and we determine what our values will be. The cost approach is the most equitable approach for this type of property. Assessors deal with facts based on actual sales. Realtors, they don't deal on actual sales that I'm aware of. The exhibits are all in here, and they are lettered. When Mrs. Lovejoy was in to see me, she asked what commercial properties have recently sold. I mentioned the Machining Innovations building on Summer Street and the storage buildings on High Street. Not once did I compare those sales to the Lovejoy property. They're not even comparable at all. And in their appeal, they mentioned that the valuation had increased by $20,000 in the last 3 years with no visitation from the assessor in 6 years. I've been out there every year, probably the past 15 years, because there's always something going on. It's been a work in progress. So I have been there. And again, she mentions that I compared, or you did, Evan did, that I compared their property, which is a small neighborhood commercial property with an apartment in it, to an $8,000 square foot warehouse and 2 storage units. Of course, they're not comparable. No assessor in their right mind would think they're comparable. And they mentioned on their application for an abatement, they mentioned several different comparable properties that they thought were comparable to them. And I have addressed each one of those concerns in my response. Please bear in mind that the year of their building was 1978. That's when it was first started. And it's been increasing in size over the years. So they're from 1978. And it's still not completely finished. I have still not completely finished the store frame, the 1-story frame, built part of the building, the 2-story, and the unfinished basement. It's an unfinished basement. As I mentioned in my denial letter, I approached all of the comparables that she asked me about, that it's been a work in progress and that not all the renovations or improvements are completed within a year's time. As April 1st is our deadline date, not everything is done by April 1st. Sometimes it skips over to the next year and it becomes the next year. And if it's still not finished, then I go back. I've been out there for a number of years. Um, 99 Church Street was mentioned as a comparable. It's a much older building. I think it was built around in the 1900s. And I didn't consider it a comparable because they have this nice big work, you have a nice big workshop on yours. If that wasn't there, probably it would be comparable, but with the workshop attached to it, it's not. And it started out as a business and it's continued to be a business and finally became a home as well as a business. 60 Cascade Mill Road, which is down the road here. And I assume you wanted to use that as a comparable, but it's just an old rundown garage. What you wanted to use was the wood shop. And that information is in here. I included it in there for you. Which is 68 and 71 Cascade Mill Road, Woodsmith's manufacturing facility. 11 Church Street is another one of those 1900s building, an older building with different use and amenities, basement and parking. 28 Center Street is an older building, but in better shape and condition than yours, but the use is different. 13 Church Street is an older, updated building with an adjoining parking lot. It is currently vacant, and I'm also sending, in the packet, I also sent a variety of other properties that are a mix of commercial and residential. In the end, you have failed to provide me any evidence that your property is assessed of just value. Also, please note that the report of assessment review that I've included is done by the State of Maine Revenue Services. They do it. They review all these property record cards, veterans exemptions, the whole thing. We are audited every year. Again, this year, I was at 99% of market value with a quality rating of 10. That's very good. And if we go a little bit further into that, we will see that residential properties are at 99% of market. Commercial properties are at 100%. Assessors have the option of rounding off to the nearest 10%.
Excuse me, 10% of what, Kathy?
We were allowed to make an error of 10% in value.
In either direction?
Yes, yes. But for a number of years, Oakland's been at 99%, so I've been assessing right where we should be. It's easier to explain that we're at 99% instead of 78 and we have to bump it up. The letters of intent show you that it's been a work in progress for a number of years. 1913, yes. 2013. And they have done various projects, extending an existing foundation to the second floor, adding living space, extending exterior walls, new woodworking shop in 2004. That was done by the prior owner. And then there was another prior owner who also did some work. As well as a new septic system in 2009. So it's a work in progress. It's been that way for a number of years. 99 Church Street was one of the comparables that you thought were comparable to you. This is a building built in 1900 that has the bottom floor are stores, barbershop, hairdressing facility, and then there's an apartment upstairs, and it has an unfinished attic as well. And these are also unfinished. Cascade Properties is that old garage that's down off Cascade Mill Road. And the comparables are 71 Cascade Mill Road, that is with Smith's. That's also an older building, but it's a much better shape than yours. It's a nice building. And there is also a warehouse where they house a lot of their furniture or supplies. Personal property, I just threw it in because you had mentioned it in your appeal, that there's a lot of personal property out there. 11 Church Street is also a building that was built in 1900. It has an apartment, an office, and an unfinished basement. And it's not in that great of shape.